Every American in America loved Independence Day a lot, but the expatriate, who lived just west of America, did not. The expatriate hated Independence Day, the whole July 4th season. Now, please don't ask why, well, no one quite knows the reason. It might be his family hadn't grown up poor on farms. It could be, perhaps, that he never took arms. But I think that the honest reason he had may have been that his politics said America was bad. Well, whatever the reason, his politics or money, he stood there on Independence Day, hating his country. Staring out of his window with hate, hands to his crowns, at the sights of the people in their cities and towns. For he knew every American in the cities beyond was busy now hanging the flag with which they were fond. And they're hanging their banners, he snarled with a sneer. There's so many patriots, George Washington's here. Then he growled, with his expatriate fingers pounding, berating, I must stop these patriots from celebrating. For tomorrow he knew all the American children and teens would stay out so late, fireworks filling their jeans. And then, oh, the noise, the noise, the noise, noise, noise. That's one thing he hated, it was the noise, the noise, noise, the noise. Then the Americans, young and old, would barbecue and eat. Then they'd eat, and they'd eat, and they'd eat. They'd eat. They would eat Liberty steaks and chips in the bag, which just made the expatriate seriously gag. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every American in the country, the tall and the small, would stand near the streets with hats, drinks, and shades. They'd stand side by side, and fools would watch the parades. This parade, and that parade, and more parades! The parades, parades, parades! And the more the expatriate thought of these Independence Day parades, the more the expatriate thought, I must stop them, these whole charades! Why, for 241 years we've done all of this now. I must stop this Independence Day from coming. But how? Then he got an idea. A dreadful idea. The expatriate got a wonderfully dreadful idea. I know just what I'll do. The expatriate laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Captain America helmet and coat. And he chuckled and clucked, what a great American disguise. With this coat and this hat, those fools will be none the wise. Now all I need is a tank. The expatriate looked around, but since tanks cost so much, there were none to be found. Did that stop this fiend? Oh no, the expatriate simply said, if I can't find a tank, I'll do this instead. So he went to his Jeep, then he took duct tape, and he made a canvas that seemed in good shape. Then he loaded some sacks and some old burlap bags on the ramshackle Jeep where he'd put all their flags. Then the expatriate barked, "Yah!" and the Jeep sailed away toward their homes where the Americans lay in wait for the next day. All their windows were dark, a soft breeze filled the air. All the Americans were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, "This is stop number 1, the old patriot hissed, and he approached the door, empty sacks in his fist. Then he slipped past the chain lock, a rather tight squeeze, but if the military could do it, then he could with ease. He got stuck only once, just for a second or three, then he stuck his head in the living room to see where the little cloth flags were sitting in a pot. I'll take these flags, he scowled, that's the first thing they need not. Then he slithered and slunk with a sly, evil manner around the whole room, and he took every banner, stars, stripes, balloons, and buntings, hats, shades, pinwheels, and paintings, and he stuffed them in sacks. Then the expatriate, like a thief of yore, slipped every sack, one by one, out the door. Then he snuck to the ice chest. He took the Americans' eats. He took the chip bags, and he took the Liberty meats. He cleaned out the ice chest quick and clean. Why, that expatriate even took their last can of barbecue baked beans. Then he stuffed all the food out the door with a very great speed. And now, grinned the expatriate, they're cameras. That's the last thing they'll need. And the fiend found the cameras, and he started to leave, when he heard a small sound, almost too quiet to believe. He turned around fast, and he saw a child, he swore, little Johnny L. Moore, who was no more than 4. The expatriate had been caught by this American son, who'd gotten out of bed for business to be done. He stared at the expatriate and said,
Captain, why? Why are you taking our parade cameras? Why?
But you know that old expatriate was so keen and so slick. He thought up a fib, and he thought it up quick. Why, my sweet little tot, the fake hero lied. There's a problem with these cameras. They won't capture outside. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my son. I'll fix it up there. Then I'll bring it back when I'm done. And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted his head, and he got him a drink, and he sent him to bed. And when little John Moore went to bed at last, he went to the cameras and he ran out fast. Then the last thing he took was the record for the player. Then he went out the door, himself that mean thing. On their walls he left nothing but nails and some string. And the one food or drink that he left smelled of shoe, for it was milk that would expire in a day or two. Then he did the same thing to the other patriots' homes, leaving other non-patriot things like toilets and combs. It was 1:15 dawn, all the Americans still asleep, all the patriots still waiting, when he piled the items in a heap, packed it with their banners, the ribbons, more American things, the flags and the stars, the stripes and the paintings. Many miles out to the fields, he'd assume, he rode with his load to burn it, he would muse. Stupid Americans, he was gleefully humming. They're finding out now that July 4th isn't coming. They're just waking up, I know just what I'll see. Their mouths will hang open for a moment or three. Then the Americans will cry out across the city. That's a sight, grinned the expatriate, that I simply must see. So he paused. The expatriate leaned on a tree. And he did see a sight near the city below. It started in slow, then it started to grow. But the sight wasn't sad. Why, this sight was glad. It couldn't be right, but it was glad, more than a tad. He stared back at the city, the expatriate rubbing his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every American in the city, the veterans and all, were parading without any decorations at all. He hadn't stopped Independence Day from coming. It came, somehow or another. It just came, all the same. And the expatriate, with his expatriate boots in the cool green grass, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could this come to pass? It came without ribbons. It came without flags. It came without stars, stripes, or their rags. And he puzzled a few hours till he puzzled no more. Then the expatriate thought of something that he just hadn't before. Maybe, he thought, maybe Independence Day doesn't come from decor. Independence Day, perhaps, means a little bit more.